The boy who said, "I don't want my country." Once upon a time, in a warm little town in America, there lived a bright and curious boy named Peter Nolan. Peter's heart was full of dreams and adventures. He loved to listen to the stories his grandfather told about brave heroes in faraway lands. Every day, as he walked to school along the tree-lined streets of his neighborhood, he imagined himself as a gallant explorer, riding on mighty horses or sailing vast oceans. He could picture himself in shiny armor, standing up for what was right. His dreams were as big as the sky, and his smile was as bright as the morning sun. Peter lived with his kind family in a cozy house surrounded by gardens full of colorful flowers and fruit trees. His mother, a gentle woman with a warm laugh, always made sure that Peter ate a hearty breakfast before school. His father, a hard-working man who loved to tell funny stories, would sometimes join Peter for walks along the town's cobblestone streets. And Peter's little sister, Lucy, was his best friend. Together they played games, built secret forts in the backyard, and shared their hopes and dreams. Life was happy and simple, filled with small adventures and the everyday magic of being together. As Peter grew older, his imagination became even more powerful. He began to wonder about the world beyond his little town. He dreamed of exploring dense forests where the trees whispered ancient secrets, climbing snowy mountains that touched the clouds, and sailing across deep blue seas where mysteries lay hidden beneath the waves. He dreamed of meeting new people and learning about different ways of life, of understanding how every place was special in its own way. And so, with the fire of youthful enthusiasm burning inside him, Peter began to think that he must do something great with his life, something that would be remembered forever. One bright summer day, as Peter was skipping home from school with Lucy by his side, he overheard some older boys talking about a group that promised freedom, change, and the excitement of fighting for what they believed was right. Their voices carried an air of mystery and rebellion that made Peter's heart beat faster with anticipation. The older boys spoke in hushed tones about a secret meeting in a barn on the edge of town, a meeting where they would plan a bold challenge against the powers that ruled the land. Peter's eyes sparkled with a mix of fear and excitement. Maybe I can be part of something big, he thought. Maybe I can help change the world. His young mind, filled with both hope and confusion, didn't fully understand the consequences of joining such a group. All he knew was that he wanted to be important, to be brave, and to make a difference like the heroes in his favorite stories. The next few days, Peter's thoughts were full of the secret meeting and the promises of adventure. He imagined standing alongside brave men and women who fought for what they believed in. He pictured himself as a fearless soldier, leading charges and protecting the honor of his country. But even in his dreams, there was a small, quiet voice inside him that wondered, is this really the best way to show my love for my home? One evening, after a long day of school and play, Peter found himself alone in his room with the moonlight gently streaming through his window. He sat on the edge of his bed, remembering the lively chatter of the older boys. The idea of being part of something so exciting was like a magic potion, filling him with a mix of courage and determination. At that moment, Peter made a fateful decision. Even though his heart was still filled with love for his family and his little town, he decided to join the group that promised a new way of doing things, even though he did not fully understand the darkness that sometimes hides behind the promise of change. Not long after Peter made his decision, he found himself walking along a dusty road to a hidden clearing outside town. The clearing was dimly lit by the light of the stars, and the air smelled of earth and dew. There, beneath an old oak tree, a group of people gathered. They whispered in low voices about injustice, and some of their eyes burned with anger. Though Peter felt a flutter of excitement, he also sensed that something was not quite right. But he pushed those thoughts aside, caught up in the thrill of belonging to a group that promised to be brave and different. Over the next few weeks, Peter attended many secret meetings. At these gatherings, the group talked about how they felt hurt by the decisions made by the country's leaders. They spoke in harsh words about the government and even dreamed of dramatic actions that would change everything. Although Peter listened closely and nodded along, deep inside he still remembered the warm stories of his childhood, the stories of heroes who always protected the good things in life. Still, the lure of adventure and the promise of being part of something big was too strong for the young boy to resist. One fateful day, however, everything changed. The peaceful routine of Peter's life was shattered when the government discovered the group's secret meetings. The authorities believed that the group was planning something dangerous, a plan that could hurt the country they all loved. Before Peter could even fully understand what was happening, he was taken away by stern-faced men in dark uniforms. He was told that he was in trouble for joining a group that wanted to hurt his own country. In a crowded courtroom filled with curious onlookers, Peter stood before a judge. The atmosphere was heavy, and every eye was on him. The judge, a wise but stern old man with eyes that seemed to see deep into one's heart, asked Peter if he felt sorry for what he had done. In the confusion of his emotions, his pride, his anger, and his fear, Peter shouted out in a burst of youthful defiance, "I don't care about this country anymore. I wish I never have to hear about the United States again." The courtroom fell silent. Even the ticking of the old clock on the wall seemed to stop as the judge fixed his gaze on Peter. The judge spoke in a calm, measured tone. "Very well, young man, if that is truly your wish, then so it shall be. You will live your life aboard ships, never to set foot on American soil again. From now on, you will be a man without a country." At first, Peter thought the judge's words were just empty punishment, a temporary scolding that would soon fade away. But soon, reality sank in like a heavy anchor. Peter was taken away and placed on a Navy ship. The stern-faced captain explained the new life Peter would lead. He would travel from one ship to another, always adrift at sea, and no one would ever speak a word of America around him. His home, the land of his birth, would become nothing more than a distant memory. Life on the ship was very different from the life Peter had known. In the beginning, he tried hard to convince himself that he was free from the bonds of his past. He worked diligently on the ship, learning to handle ropes, scrub decks, and mend sails. His days were filled with chores and constant work under the bright sun. At first, Peter's youthful energy and stubborn pride kept him going. He pretended that he did not miss his home, that he was content with the life of a sailor. But as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, a slow change began to take root in Peter's heart. The vastness of the ocean, stretching endlessly before him, made him feel very small. Each day, as he stood on the deck and looked out at the glittering waves, he began to understand that freedom without a home was like a ship with no anchor. It could drift forever without ever knowing where it belonged. One clear morning, when the sky was painted in brilliant shades of pink and gold, the ship sailed close to a tiny, enchanting island. The island was like something out of a dream. It was covered in lush green trees, dotted with bright, cheerful flowers, and filled with the soft, sweet songs of birds. Peter's heart leapt at the sight. He pressed his face against the railing, wishing he could jump off the ship and explore the island's hidden coves and secret beaches. Full of hope, Peter rushed to the captain. "Captain," he pleaded, "may I go ashore, just for a little while, to see the island? I promise I won't cause any trouble." But the captain's face was solemn as he replied, "I'm sorry, Peter, but you know the rules. You are not allowed to leave the ship. Your sentence is clear, and no one may break it. Peter's heart sank. He pressed his hands to the cold glass of the ship's railing and watched longingly as the island's inhabitants went about their joyful lives. He saw children playing with wooden toys, families sharing picnics under the shade of large trees, and elders sitting together, laughing and telling stories. The warm sounds and smells of the island made Peter's chest ache with longing for the home he had lost. Days passed, and the feeling of loneliness began to spread through Peter like a cold wind. Night after night, as he lay in his cramped bunk below decks, the gentle rocking of the ship reminded him of how far he was from everything he had ever known. His dreams, once filled with visions of bravery and adventure, were now shadowed by regret. Memories of laughter, of warm embraces, and of the familiar scents of his town began to fill his thoughts. One night, after a long day of hard work, Peter returned to his small sleeping area. Tired and heavy-hearted, he lay down on his thin, creaky cot as he closed his eyes, his hand brushed against something soft tucked beneath his pillow. Curious, he reached in and pulled out a small, neatly folded piece of cloth. Gently unfolding it, Peter discovered a tiny wooden carving, a delicate figure of an eagle, its wings outstretched, clutching a small American flag in its talons. The craftsmanship was exquisite, and the carving shone with a subtle reminder of the country he had once loved so deeply. Peter's eyes filled with tears as he held the little token in his hands. How did this come to be here? He whispered to himself. The eagle and flag stirred something deep inside him, memories of warm family dinners, of the friendly chatter on his street, and of a country that had always been his home. In that quiet moment, Peter realized that he had made a terrible mistake with his angry words. He had taken for granted the very thing that had given him life, love, and laughter. Every night from that day on, Peter kept the carving close to him. In the soft glow of his bunk light, he would hold it tightly and remember the simple joys of home, the aroma of his mother's freshly baked bread, the sound of his father's laughter, and the playful giggles of his sister, Lucy. The carving became a small beacon of hope in the darkness, a reminder that even if he could not return to his country, the love and memories of home still lived in his heart. As the ship sailed on through calm seas and stormy nights, Peter's life became a long journey of self-reflection. The days were filled with endless tasks, scrubbing the decks until they shone, climbing the rigging to help mend the sails, and keeping a constant watch over the deep, mysterious ocean. In every corner of the ship, Peter saw reminders of what he had lost, a warm smile here, a gentle word there, and the echo of a memory that once made his heart sing. Over time, Peter began to notice that not everyone on the ship was as cold as he had once believed himself to be. There were other sailors who, like him, carried sadness in their eyes. There was old Jonas, the weathered cook, who always had a kind word and a story to share about the sunny days back on land. And there was Maria, a gentle young woman with a voice as soft as a lullaby, who would sometimes hum old tunes that reminded everyone of home. Peter soon found that by talking quietly with these kind souls, he could share his feelings and, in turn, learn that even in the vast loneliness of the ocean, there was warmth and friendship to be found. Each evening after work, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned brilliant shades of purple and orange, Peter would sit with his newfound friends on the deck. They would talk about their childhoods and the places they loved most. Maria would recall the scent of blooming roses in her grandmother's garden, while old Jonas would remember the joyful noise of bustling market streets on a sunny day. Slowly, Peter's heart began to mend as he listened to their tales. Even though he was not allowed to speak about his own country, the memories of home echoed softly in the laughter and tears of his companions. During one such evening, When the stars twinkled like little diamonds in the dark sky, Peter gathered all his courage to speak about the feelings that had long been hidden inside him. His voice was quiet at first, but then it grew stronger with every word. "I miss my home," he confessed, looking at the flickering light of the lantern and the faces of his friends. "I miss the sound of my family's voices, the feel of the warm earth under my feet, and the gentle embrace of my country." Maria reached out and placed a soft hand on Peter's shoulder. "I know it hurts," she said kindly, "but even though you are far from your land, the love you have inside you can never be taken away. Your home lives in your heart, and that is a place no one can ever steal." Those words, spoken with genuine care, sank deep into Peter's soul. For the first time in many long years, he understood that home was not just a patch of land or the sound of a familiar accent, it was the very essence of who he was. It was the memories, the love, and the values that he carried inside him every day. Yet, the pain of his past choices still lingered like a dark shadow over his bright hopes. As the seasons changed, so did the ship's course. It sailed into bustling harbors where sailors gathered to share news of far-off lands, and then out again into the endless, unpredictable sea. Peter learned many lessons from his life aboard the ship. He learned how to work hard with his hands and mind, and he discovered that every wave of the ocean, no matter how high or wild, eventually calmed into a gentle ripple. He learned that every storm, no matter how fierce, passed away, leaving behind clearer skies and fresh hope. One day, as the ship was preparing to leave a busy port town, Peter noticed a small child selling bright, colorful drawings on the dock. The child's eyes shone with innocence and hope as he called out to passers-by, "Come see my pictures." The drawings were of sunny fields, smiling faces, and a shining flag that reminded Peter so much of the one he once loved. For a long moment, Peter stared at the picture, and he could almost hear the laughter of children playing in a warm park and the sound of friendly voices sharing secrets under a bright blue sky. That evening, after a long day of work, Peter sat quietly on the deck, the cool night air filling his lungs. The wooden eagle carving lay beside him on the wooden bench, its gentle presence a reminder of a past he could not erase. He thought about the child on the dock, and about the moments of pure happiness that even a small drawing could bring. In that moment, Peter made a silent promise to himself. He would remember the lessons of home no matter where he was. Even if he was forced to wander the endless sea, his heart would always be a sanctuary for the love of his country. In the years that followed, Peter continued to work hard and to learn the ways of the sailor's life. There were days when the ocean was kind and calm, and Peter would spend hours watching the gentle dance of the waves. On other days, fierce storms would rage across the deck, and Peter and his comrades would work together, their hearts pounding with determination and fear, until the storm passed. Through every trial and every hardship, Peter discovered that true courage was not in defiance or anger, but in the quiet strength of facing one's mistakes and learning from them. During one long winter, when the cold winds howled and the sea seemed to freeze under the weight of icy waves, Peter found himself standing on the deck during a rare lull in the work. The sky was a soft gray, and even the stars seemed to hide behind thick clouds. As he gazed out over the frozen surface of the water, memories of his childhood came flooding back. He remembered the laughter of his family around a crackling fire, the taste of hot cocoa on a snowy day, and the warmth of hugs shared under a woolen blanket. In those moments, Peter's heart ached with the pain of loss, but also with a tender hope that one day, he might be able to feel that warmth again. Even in the midst of the bitter cold, Peter never forgot the lesson of the wooden eagle. Every time he looked at it, he was reminded that home was not just a place he had been forced to leave, it was a part of who he was. And though the sea might keep him physically away from his country, the love and memories of his homeland lived inside him like a steady, glowing ember. As the years passed, Peter's hair turned from the dark brown of youth to a silvery white, and the strength of his muscles gave way to the gentle grace of a man who had seen many sunrises and sunsets. His eyes, once bright with youthful ambition, now held the wisdom of someone who had learned both the beauty and the pain of life. Though he had long since ceased to dream of wild adventures on faraway lands, Peter continued to find comfort in the small, quiet moments, the gentle lapping of the waves, the soft murmur of the wind, and the warm glow of a memory that refused to fade away. One day, as the ship sailed near a busy harbor that bustled with life and color, Peter found himself standing at the very edge of the deck. The water shimmered in the sunlight, and the distant sound of laughter and music reached his ears. For a moment, he closed his eyes and allowed himself to imagine what it would be like to return home. He pictured the familiar streets of his town, the smiling faces of his family and friends, and the comforting sounds of a place that had once filled his heart with hope. But even as these images danced behind his closed eyelids, he knew deep inside that he could never truly go back. The choice he had made so long ago had set him on a course that could not be reversed. With a heavy heart, Peter turned away from the harbor. He knew that the laws of his new life were unyielding. The captain, who had once been a strict enforcer of the rules, now regarded Peter with a quiet sadness. One evening, when the sky was painted in the soft hues of dusk and the stars were just beginning to twinkle, Peter gathered the courage to speak his truth one final time. "Captain," he said softly as he entered the captain's cabin, "I have lived a long time at sea, and I have learned many lessons. I now understand that home is not just the land where we were born. It is the love, the memories, and the kindness that we carry in our hearts. I have made mistakes, and I have lost my way for many years. But I want you to know that even though I cannot return, I will always remember the beauty of my country." The captain looked at Peter with a deep, empathetic gaze. "You have learned what many do not understand," he said. "It is true that your country is not merely a place on a map, it is a part of you. And though you may never set foot on that soil again, its spirit lives on in your heart. You are, in many ways, more connected to your homeland than you might ever realize." Peter listened to the captain's words, and in that moment, he felt a strange sense of peace. He realized that, despite the long years of isolation and regret, there was still hope. His life had been a long journey, filled with both sorrow and joy, and every experience had helped him understand a little more about the true meaning of home. As time went on, Peter became known among the crew not just as a quiet, hard-working sailor, but as a kind soul who listened to others and shared gentle wisdom. When a new sailor joined the ship, a young boy who reminded Peter of himself, Peter would often sit with him and speak softly of the importance of family, friendship, and the beauty of one's roots. He would tell him, "Even if life takes you far away, remember that your heart is a home that no one can take away. Treasure your memories, care for the people you love, and never let anger blind you to the wonders of the world." These quiet moments of sharing and caring became Peter's new adventure. They filled the long, lonely days at sea with light and hope. In the soft glow of the early morning or the gentle embrace of a starry night, Peter found solace in the fact that his mistakes had taught him the value of compassion and the importance of every small kindness. Even though he remained a man without a country in the eyes of the law, in his heart he was part of something much larger, a tapestry woven from the threads of love, courage, and forgiveness. Many years later, as the ship neared the end of its long journey, Peter's thoughts turned once again to that tiny wooden eagle. Its weathered surface told the story of all the years it had witnessed, the countless sunrises over endless waves, the whispered promises of friendship in the darkest nights, and the quiet strength that comes from never giving up hope. One evening, as a soft rain fell over the deck and the sound of raindrops mingled with the murmuring of the ocean, Peter sat alone with the carving in his hands. He whispered, "Thank you, my dear friend, for reminding me of who I truly am." The raindrops sparkled like tiny stars in the dim light, and for a moment, Peter felt that the whole universe was listening to his quiet confession. In that gentle, magical moment, he realized that the journey was not measured in miles or days, but in the depth of one's heart and the lessons learned along the way. Home, he understood, was a feeling, a constant, ever-burning light that no distance or mistake could ever extinguish. As the ship sailed on, Peter continued to cherish every small kindness, every gentle smile from a fellow sailor, and every memory of a time when his heart was full of wonder. He knew that the road of life was long and winding, and that sometimes the most important adventures were the ones that happened within. Even if he could never return to the country he once knew, he carried it with him in every laugh, every tear, and every beat of his heart. In the final days of his long life at sea, when the creaking of the ship and the soft hum of the ocean had become as familiar as an old friend, Peter found himself surrounded by those who cared for him. The sailors he had helped and the young ones who had listened to his quiet wisdom gathered around him as he sat on the deck under a sky full of brilliant stars. There, in that gentle circle of friends, Peter felt a deep and abiding peace. He looked each one in the eye and said, "Remember, my dear friends, that even when we feel lost, our hearts will always guide us home. Treasure the memories, forgive the mistakes, and let love be your constant compass." And so, as the ship sailed into the soft glow of dawn one final time, Peter's heart was filled with the warmth of every home he had ever known, the home of his childhood, the home of his family, and the home that lived within him. Though he had spent his life adrift, he had learned that home was not just the place where he was born, but the people, the love, and the memories that made him who he was. In that deep and quiet understanding, Peter found the ultimate peace. In the end, Peter's long journey taught him, and all who heard his story, a lesson that is as true today as it was in the days of his youth. The things we say in anger can hurt us later, and the treasures we have in our hearts are far more important than any place on a map. No matter how far we roam or how many mistakes we make, home is where our love, our memories, and our dreams reside. It is a part of us that no one can ever take away. This is the story of a boy who once shouted, "I don't care about my country." And how, through countless days on the endless ocean, he learned that home is not just the land we leave behind but the love and memories we carry within us every single day. His life reminds us that while we may sometimes stray from the path, it is never too late to remember the value of the people and places that shape who we are. May this story remind every listeners, no matter how far life's journeys may take you, that home is always waiting in your heart, ready to welcome you back with open arms and endless love. The end.